It's Tecmo's second football game in under a month. Of course, Tecmo isn't unfamiliar with soccer games. They've already created the two best soccer games on the Famicom in their Captain Tsubasa series. Those games got around the limitations of the Famicom hardware by turning soccer into a strategy game. This time, Tecmo goes for all-out action and a progression system very similar to Tecmo Bowl. But first, a little bit of background. At the end of 1990, Japan was actually undergoing a bit of a soccer renaissance. It was known that there were plans to establish a professional soccer league in the country, and only a few weeks after the release of Tecmo World Cup Soccer, the J-League was formally announced. While they wouldn't play a game until 1992, interest in soccer was at a peak in Japan in the early 90s. Tecmo's third soccer game has you choose a national soccer team, and then you have to climb your ranks to World Cup champion by beating each of the other teams once. I have to point out that there is of course a Japanese team, though Japan did not qualify for the World Cup that year. The on-field controls are extremely simple. A is a short kick, B is a long kick, and if you don't have control over the ball, hitting A makes you do a slide kick. Also, if you don't have the ball, then B will rotate through players, but in my experience you don't really need to do this. Rotating through your players like that often puts you in control of somebody who's off-screen and you don't know where they're at, and your own players are generally pretty good at taking the ball. As you might have gathered from those controls, there's no dedicated shoot or pass button. It's all the same thing here. If you want to get the ball deep downfield and go over your opponent's heads, hit B. If you want to pass to a nearby teammate, point in their direction and hit A. And if you want to shoot at the goal, point yourself toward the goal and hit A. You almost definitely won't make it in if you use B. The best way to score that I found was to approach the goal, lure the goalkeeper to one side, and then kick the ball diagonally. Of course, this is dependent upon you not getting swarmed. Soccer in Tecmo World Cup plays a lot like kids on a field, with everybody rushing to one side and chasing the ball everywhere. So you get these big crowds of players. Doing well is mainly about staying out of those crowds. If your opponent gets the ball down towards you, the biggest risk is that your goalkeeper will block it once, but then be stunned when they kick it again immediately afterwards. It can take them a few seconds to recover after they block. There is a fair amount of variability here. A ball will go towards two players, and you can't be sure which of the two players will get it. Sometimes the ball will get knocked away from somebody dribbling down the field, and sometimes the player who tried to steal gets stunned for a moment. I thought it might be based on which team or that there were individual players with abilities, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Everyone on your team is the same, and the teams only seem to improve as you progress through the game. Tecmo World Cup Soccer does play very quickly. You'll get through a match in less than 10 minutes. And if you win, then you get a password to let you pick up from there. As you might expect, the first match or two are pretty easy, but then the opponent starts stepping up and it's harder to get the ball away from them, and it becomes a real challenge. Tecmo World Cup Soccer was actually an arcade game originally, which explains a bit of the arcade feel here. As an arcade game, it really puts the emphasis on the action. As you might guess, since this is a sports game, Tecmo World Cup Soccer doesn't have a huge fan base in Japan. It's not completely forgotten, but it's not the soccer games by Tecmo that people remember. My own view is a little bit more complex. Soccer games on the Famicom have not been good, except for, well, Tecmo's Captain Tsubasa games. The best so far has been Nintendo's own Soccer, and it wasn't very good. This is the first action-based soccer game on the Famicom where I think it's actually an enjoyable experience to play. I don't think I'd give it a strong recommendation to anyone. It's a very basic game after all, and I'm definitely not going to go back and revisit it very often. But this is the first time where I felt like I could see players at the time enjoying it. So I guess what this means is Tecmo has the 3 best soccer games on the Famicom so far.